2050 megawatt. Yeah, right. It's 2050 megawatt AC. So now the most interesting fact is in India by 2025 there is 2 lakh plus job openings in only solar sector. So it will be a huge avenue for our budding engineers and young bright minds to work in this sector. And we also believe that youth can change the world if they are working in a proper direction. So let's come to the power scenario in India. So if you can check the power scenario and the all sources available in India, so the second largest source is renewable, and yes, we are going good with renewable. The first one is 205 gigawatt through coal-based thermal power plant, and 87.02 megawatt from renewable sources, except large hydroelectric. In renewable energy sources, we don't consider large hydroelectric in renewable sources. We only consider the small and pico scales hydroelectric power plants in renewables. So this is the current solar non-conventional energy sources in India as on 2020. So our wind power capacity is 38 gigawatt and solar is 36 gigawatt. And we have biomass and small hydropower. And the most important thing is, like in the next coming decades, waste to energy, it will be a huge sector. So Singapore is also Singapore, the main city is getting powered by waste to energy, but in India there is plenty of constraints due to gather the all waste in a segregated locations. So India has the large potential, huge potential of solar power, basically in the southern, western, and northwestern side of the country. And as well as in the South India, there is a huge scope for wind power plant. Like in Maharashtra and Tamil Nadu, this way there is a plenty of solar power plant and as well as wind power plant. So we are going good in renewables. So what's behind the solar mission? So our central government has several schemes to promote renewable energy. The mother mission is JNNSM, Jawaharlal Nehru National Solar Mission, and apart from that, there is plenty of other schemes like Jal Jeevan Mission, that is under Department of Drinking Water and Sanitation Ministry of Jal Shakti, that every household of India should have connected to the tap water scheme. Pradhan Mantri Kishan Urja Suraksha Utthan Mahabhijan, like PM Kusum. The Kusum is to empower the farmers to put the solar pumping system for their agricultural work, as well as use that power plant to feed energy into the grid and earn some more money. And the next one is Atal Jyoti Yojana. That's basically for solar street lights to brighten the rural India via solar power. So now let's have a look in the JNNSM. So what's the main solar mission? It was initiated by Mr. Dr. Manmohan Singh in the year of 2010. The target was to install 20 gigawatt solar capacity in India by 2022. This target was increased by PM Narendra Modi in 2015 to install 100 gigawatt solar power capacity by 2020. So take a moment, just think, our main goal was by 2022, 20 gigawatt, and then we increased it 5 times with 100 gigawatt. And this 20 gigawatt we have already achieved in 2018. So now, if you take the JNSM, the most important part is solar power plant. And in this 100 megawatt, the contribution for rooftop solar power plant, the contribution of rooftop solar power plant is 40 gigawatt. So now we have to understand what are the types of solar power plant we can install. So we can divide the solar power plant basically in two categories. The first one is based on mounting location. So if we are installing the solar power plant, give me a moment, just a moment. So if we are installing the solar power plant in the rooftop, so it's called rooftop solar power plant. If we are putting the solar power plant in ground mounting, so it's called ground mounted solar plant. And if the plant is on, please cast it, the slides. Yeah, right. Thank you. So rooftop power plant, floating power plant, and if it is mounted on the ground, it's called ground mounted power plant. So let's check how a rooftop power plants and a ground mounted power plants works. The first photograph is a floating solar power plant. So the structures is somewhere like which can float and take the all solar modules. Just we can use the riverbed. The next one is it's a rooftop power plant, but it's in a RCC. It's not a RCC roof. It's a tin shed, like factory shed. So there we can also install solar power plant. And the next one is the normal rooftop solar power plant, and the left one is the ground mounted. So these are the basic classification of solar based on the mounting location. Now in previous slide, so if we can divide the solar power plant in 3 parts based on grid interaction, how the solar plant is interacting with the grid. So to understand this off-grid, on-grid and hybrid, we need to understand first the meterings, gross meterings and net metering. So what is gross metering? So in case of gross metering, if you are installing a solar power plant, you are generating solar power and you are feeding it to directly into the grid. There will be a solar DISCOM meter. The meter will be provided by DISCOM. That will be the generation meter, and it will be fed into grid. The bill will be you will generate the billing, and the DISCOM will pay you. Suppose you have you have a college. So in this college, you have your consumption as well as you have installed solar power plant. So in case of gross metering, you can't consume the solar power inside your college premises. You have to totally fed into the grid, and you will get money for that fed into grid energy. And in case of consumption, you will have a normal meter what currently you have. Through that meter, the billing will be done. And the next one is net meter. So net meter is something like you have your own consumption, you have your own solar power plant. So you are generating from your solar power plant and you have your load, that is your consumption. So if we take generation and consumption, there can be 3 conditions. The first one is generation, your solar power generation is less than your consumption. So the deficit energy will be imported via grid, normal conventional grid power. And the second one is when generation is equivalent to consumption. That means you are using your total generation as captive. There is no fed into grid. There is no input from the grid. And the third option is your solar power generation is greater than your consumption. Like maybe you have a school, so in Sunday there is a holiday. You have no consumption, but you have generation. That time that energy will be fed into grid. And what is the work of this net meter? The net meter will record how much energy you have exported to the grid, how much energy you have imported from the grid, and the net will be billed. So if the net is positive, you have to pay for, suppose you have imported for 100 units and you exported 50 units, that means you have to pay 50 units to the DISCOM. And if you have fed power, exported the power 100 units and you have imported only 50 units, that 50 units will be carry forwarded for the next one as credit. Am I clear in this gross metering and net metering? Just because it's a very important thing to understand. Do you have any kind of confusion regarding gross metering and net metering? Fine. So now we can explain what is off-grid solar power plant. So from the name, it's obviously very clear. Like there is no direct interaction with the grid. So it will be off-grid power plant. During the daytime, harvested solar energy charges the battery bank, which then drives the load. So it's a standalone system which provides uninterrupted power backup during power cut, just because there is no connection with the grid. If you have the sun enough solar energy to charge the battery is charged. The battery can drive the load. The next one is on-grid solar power plant. So that is the most important thing. All this solar mission and everything is based on this on-grid solar power plant, which is almost 80% of the total solar mission. So in case of on-grid solar power plant, from the name we can easily derive that plant is connected with the grid. Obviously, the solar output is directly connected to the grid via interfacing panel. So how a solar on-grid connected power plant works? So here we used a grid connected or grid tie inverter, which synchronize with the grid parameters, frequency, voltage, and then we can import power energy from grid and we can export from the solar power plant to the grid. So if generation of the generated solar power is more than required to drive the load, then the excess energy generated is exported to the grid, and in the vice versa situation, the opposite thing, it will be imported from the grid. So now there is a problem in grid connected solar power plant. Most of the customers often complain, we have installed solar power plant, but at the time of power cut, we don't have any backup from solar. So now we have to understand why this grid connected power plant is not enabled to support at the time of power cut. Due to grid islanding, on-grid solar power plant can't generate power during power cut or load shedding. Now, why? Suppose in a locality there is 50 houses. Among these 50 houses, 10 houses are having solar power plant, grid connected solar power plant. Now the DISCOM people want shutdown to repair the line. So if they have taken shutdown from their DISCOM side, but if the solar power plant is still generating and feeding power into grid, then there will be no shutdown. There will be a huge accident, and it's not possible to inform every household to take a shutdown. So there is a mandate option. Every grid connected solar inverter should have the grid islanding facility. Otherwise, it won't be permitted to put a grid connected solar power plant. So now, what is hybrid solar power plant? So hybrid solar power plant is just like, it's a combination of off-grid as well as a on-grid solar power plant. So how it works? At the daytime, when there is energy generation from solar, the load can be directly drive through the solar power, just like a grid connected power plant. If the generation is excess, the battery is charged fully, the excess power will be fed into grid. If there is no load, no requirement of energy, but battery is not totally charged up, then the energy will be, the solar energy will charge the battery, and if the battery is again charged up totally, there is no load, the excess power will be fed into grid. And if there is shortfall of energy generation and battery, obviously we will import from grid. Now the most important part. So at the time of power cut, this hybrid inverter will work as a off-grid one. It is already connected with a battery and it will be islanded from the conventional grid. So the battery will that time run the all critical loads. Just because suppose you have an organization where you have some critical loads, like maybe your computers or lift, or if you are in your hospital, there is ICU. For that purpose, this hybrid plant is very much useful. Just because for the major loads, you are putting a grid connected power plant that is sufficing your energy criteria and as well as reducing your electricity bills. But for at the time of power cut, instead of using a diesel generator, you are using the solar battery. So now we are going to the list of major materials. So in a solar power plant, the major items are like solar PV module, module mounting structures, inverters, DC-DB, AC-DB, cables, DC cables and AC cables, connectors and glands, and the earthing system and lightning protection. So this is a basic solar module. It's a 72 cells polycrystalline solar modules. This is a basic solar module mounting structure which is used in rooftop solar power plant generally. This is a inverter. This is a string inverter. These are the DC-DB and AC-DB. Basically, this DC-DB and AC-DB is here for protection. The main protection is from surge. So from DC side and AC side, we need to protect the inverter system from surges. So we use our DC SPD in the DC-DB and AC side SPD in the AC-DB. And obviously there is for a larger scale, there is isolator, there is fuse for every string, and we can isolate every strings from this DC-DB. So these are DC cables. So for solar, we generally use 4 or 6 square mm DC solar cable, which is XLPO cable and tinned copper. So after the copper, there is a protection layer of tin. So these are the AC cables. These are 4 core for 3-phase uses and 2 core cables for single phase, where in the household where 2 kilowatt, 3 kilowatt, up to 5 kilowatt, we can provide a single phase system. But more than 5 kilowatt, obviously we have to go for a 3-phase system. So these are the earthing materials, the earthing electrode, earthing connectors, and lightning arresters. So now the most important thing, there is plenty variety of solar modules. Like the major category is crystalline technology and thin film technology. Thin silicon crystalline technology is the more reliable and commercially viable one that is getting used in everywhere. So in crystalline also there is two types, like monocrystalline and polycrystalline. And if we go into the in depth, there is in monocrystalline also there is plenty of differences, like it's normal monocrystalline or monopark cells, and after that the new technology is monopark half cut cells. All are basically the higher efficiency to get the lower most maximum energy from the minimum space. So we discussed like off-grid solar power plant, on-grid solar power plant, and hybrid solar power plant. So in every power plant, the inverter is the heart, and the inverter has different topology. Like for the off-grid, so we have every off-grid inverter runs on voltage source. Like if there is a voltage source of battery, differentiating the voltage based on the voltage difference, the current flows. So in any kind of off-grid inverter, you need to have a battery, otherwise it won't work. The next one is on-grid inverter, which basically synchronize with the grid parameter, like 415 volt, 50 hertz, 3-phase, or 230 volt, 50 hertz, single phase. It synchronizes with the grid. If synchronization happens, then only current can flow. In case of hybrid inverter, that both the facilities available, like it can interact with the grid, it can sync with the grid and isolate from the grid, as well as it can charge a battery. So now one more thing, there is a micro inverter. So micro inverter is basically a module level inverter. So we can connect one single solar module or two solar modules with this one inverter. So in later on, we will come to the part at the design part. So when we will discuss where to use which type of inverters. So now solar module mounting structure. So in ground mounted rooftop, in rooftop there is two type like concrete roof, flat roof, or tin shed or slanted roof. And in case of tin shed or slanted roof, obviously the roof is like this. So if one shed is in south facing, the another will be in north. And in this India and north hemisphere, we can't put a solar module in the north face, right? So the generation will be very less. So this is a basic ground mounted solar structure. So in case we are using C channel structures. So in this C channel structures, it's basically done not via piling. So currently we are using ramming. So there will be a big machines with a hammer. The C channel pole will be like this, and this hammer will be through the hammering. It will goes into the ground. This is the another type of ground mounted solar structure which we call solar carport structure. So in this case, suppose we can use the parking space, it will give the shadow to the parking lot, as well as it can generate huge energy and fed into grid. So these are the different rooftop solar structure. If the roof is flat on concrete roof, we can do the fast structure. If the tin shed and that is south facing, so there the structure cost is very minimal. We can only put aluminum channels and we can mount the solar modules on those channels. And if the north facing, the tin shed is north faced, then we have to use this kind of structures just to elevate the module in the right direction. Though it's not advisable, just because it increase the weight and the load in the roof, as well as at the time of storm there will be a high chance of huge wind load and chances of accident. But in few cases we have to, some places we have to install it. So these are the example of floating solar structures. Though this floating technology is in very nascent stage in India, but in abroad it's like it's getting popular day by day. In case of floating, it depends on the surface water. Just because if it's river and there's a high stream, then the technology will be different. If it's in the offshore, in the sea, the technology will be different. And if it's in a lake or pond, the technology is different. So the basic fundamental is the Archimedes principle. So we have to float. We have to design the structure so that it can float with the total load. So now let's come to the point how to design a solar power plant. So if you want to design a solar power plant, the most important aspect is site survey. The more accurate data you get from site, the optimum design you can make. So the first point is site survey. Then we have to choose the type of plant based on the customer's requirement and available resources. So obviously the main resource is the maximum available shadow-free area. So if you don't have the shadow-free area and you have money, you have consumption and everything, you can't install a rooftop solar power plant. And the next part is you should have the consumption. It's because if you don't have that much of consumption, then why to generate the power? So the next part is sizing of the plant based on the energy requirement. So now I want to throw some light in site survey, what we should do for a proper site survey. So in case of site survey, so we need roof layout drawing with proper measurement of dimension. So from that dimension and the drawing, we can calculate the total available shadow free area. So we advise if there is any large trees or any high rise inside nearby the this nearby this establishment, if there is any high rise, so that should be noted. Then we use obviously a compass to check the orientation and the azimuth angle. Just because if the building azimuth is not as per our solar installations, maybe we need to tilt the solar in some diagonally. So it also increase the requirement of space. So after all these site survey thing, we generally study the electricity bills to determine the average energy consumption of the utility. So now, if we can take the 12 months electricity bill, it's better. It's the best thing. But if we are not getting 12 months, we actually need at least 2 summer and 2 winter. Just because at the summer, your energy consumption is at very high level, and in winter it comes to a very low level. But for designing a solar power plant with a proper capacity, we need to analyze this energy consumption pattern, and we usually note down the major equipment details. And then we need to identify where the inverter and ACDB will be mounted. Identification of cable routing and grid interface point. So where we will interface or synchronize the solar power plant with the grid. So these two places will give us the actual idea of cable routing and cable sizing. So if we are not getting the length of the cable, so we can't decide what should be the cross sectional area of the cable, right? So we have to calculate the cable loss too, and the identification of possible lighting arrestor and earth pit locations, which is very important. So now, so after site survey, the most important thing is plant layout and shadow analysis. Just because if there is shadow in the solar module, there is no meaning to install it. Just because it won't generate any power. So in this case, the layout design aims at positioning the solar PV module optimally to achieve maximum energy output. And shadow analysis is done to minimize the partial shadow effect. So we have tried to create a demo like where there is like obstruction from few sides, there is a height difference between the roof, just like how the just yeah, so how it is how the layout should be done. And in plenty of places in high rise building, we have seen that the LMR room is almost 3 meters to 8 meters, we have seen in plenty of projects. So that LMR room shadow is a very crucial thing to install a solar power plant in a high rise building. So we have tried to make it, but obviously it's all our 3D modeling and design, and it's difficult to put in a PPT slide. So we will take your time, take your permission to just share our PVSys and SketchUp software. Please.
You will be using this computer only, or I should be giving you presenter rights to somebody else as well?
Yeah, presentation right to Choyon.
Okay.
Thank you.
It has been given already.
Yeah, your screen is visible. Yeah, so please show like first the shadow analysis, how we do the shadow analysis, and then we'll move to the heat map. So how we can check the every module is getting proper sunlight throughout the year. So the screen is visible?
Yes, sir, screen is visible.
So here we can actually analyze the shadow in, can you see the date and time bar, like January, February, March, where the cursor is?
Yes, we can see.
Yeah. So from this software, we can check that in January, in particular time, so what is the shadow in the layout. So Janjan, please start the video. The video is
Anybody else needs presenter rights?
no. It's from Chayan. It's going, but the video is showing in my screen, but it's not showing in Zoom webinar.
Yeah, we cannot view the video. We cannot see it.
I think there is some problem in running the video in this. Is
You
it
can play it
visible
now,
now?
sir. Yes, you can play it now, sir.
Okay,
Probably
okay,
some internet lag. Yeah.
okay. So this is the shadow analysis video. With the every quarter, we can analyze the shadow, how much shadow is occurring at the module level, module layout area. And through this, after this shadow analysis, throughout the year, we check the heat map analysis. So it's showing the December. December is the shadow length is the most highest size of the shadow. Yeah, right. So now Nilanjan, please show the heat map. How we calculate the number of hours in each modules. So from this shadow analysis, we can get some like some two corner modules or this from the lower part of the modules, there is a shadow is coming. So this is the shadow heat map. Is it visible, the heat map?
Yes, sir, it is visible.
Yeah. So now if we click on the each and every modules, we'll get the what is the total average sunlight daylight per hour. So it's 11.2 hours daylight throughout the year for this module. But if we go to the most north part where there is a shadow from east side as well as the height difference is coming in the south side, the average daylight per day is 6.8. So in by this kind of analysis, we can properly utilize the shadow free area. So from this, we will omit those modules which are having 6.5 hours or 6 hours. So now from the this SketchUp shadow analysis tool, we can check this 6.5 hours. What is the actual duration? Is it in morning 6 to 9 and then evening 3 to 5? Then the 6 hours is not useful. But if the 6 hours is 9 a.m. to 3 a.m., it's useful. So in this SketchUp also, we can analyze this thing. And after analyzing this shadow analysis report and all this 3D modeling, we put this 3D model into PVSys. So PVSys is a software where we can get the actual simulation. So how this plant will work. So in PVSys, we can take what will be the for a particular area by checking their metronome data for last 20 years. What will be the generation if we are installing a solar power plant? In PVSys software, we have to put the solar modules which make we are using, which is the model of solar modules we are using, which kind of inverter we are using. So now we will share the screen with the PVSys software. So in PVSys, we can put all the things what we are discussing, like orientation, system. So in system, what is the module we are using, what's the actual location of the plant, and the metronome data. And after that, we can put all the data and we can get a report from it, like what will be the generation after 1 year, what will be the generation second year, third year, and after 10 year up to 25 years. So this tool is very important to take a decision whether we want to put a solar power plant or not, just because it's obviously a clean energy, green energy, and there is no pollution. But if we are putting a solar power plant proposal in any organization, it should have a commercial viability. So in case of commercial viability, anyone can promise anything like this plant will generate this much and this plant will generate this much. To prevent this forgery, so this PVC software is getting used. So Nilanjan, please share our PVC's report. How a PVC's report looks like. Is it visible? The PVC's report is visible?
Yes, sir.
So in a PVC's report, the first, it's a project name, and then the most important thing, the actual coordinates of the project location. Just because if we are putting these coordinates wrong, the material name data will be erroneous. So next, we have to put the number of modules, which companies, which make modules we are using. So every manufacturers have their PAN file. So with that PAN file, the data sheet is incorporated into the PVC software. So here we have put it 18 modules in a string. So in PVCs, we have to mention how many modules we are putting in a single series connection, and how many of that strings can be connected in parallel connection. So here we are using 18 numbers of module in series, and the total module number is 90. That means in parallel there is 5 strings. We have calculated with 335 watt peak polycrystalline solar panel. So here the operating condition. So all these data sheets and all this rated power based on STC, which is 25 degrees centigrade, 1.5 air mass, and 1000 watt per meter square irradiation. But at the operating condition, how the plant will react? Like if we are putting a 30.1 kilowatt peak of DC side in STC, at operating condition, it will act like at 50 degrees centigrade, 27.41 kilowatt peak. And here we can get the MPP, the maximum power point tracking voltage too. And the next part is we can analyze the losses. We can put the losses, and the loss diagram will be in the last page. The next. So these are the this page is the most important part, page. Like what is the maximum production? So this specific production means is 1432. Like 1432 kilowatt hour of energy will be generated if we install 1 kilowatt peak of solar power plant. Every year it will generate 1432 units of energy. So it's called specific production. And there is another one is performance ratio. So performance ratio means how your plant is working. So this is a basic this is a ratio between the energy generated in the numerator, and in denominator there is a total area of modules, irradiance, and efficiency of that module. So it's a basically percentage. There is unitless figure. So if the performance ratio is more than 75%, it considers it's a very good plant. There is no issues of shadow. So in case this model report, we didn't calculate the shadow. We didn't consider the shadow part. So here we are getting every month what will be the generation from that solar power plant. Here it's mentioned like global horizon. That's what is the irradiance in global horizon, and what will be that module level. Just because we are not putting the module with the roof horizontally, we are putting a tilt. So in that tilt, what will be the irradiance? What will be the energy coming from the sun? And the next part is what will be the generation from array. So the how much energy the solar module will generate. And the next one is what energy is ultimately fed into the grid. Just because there is a system loss, cable loss, inverter loss, plenty of losses. So the last part is what is the fed into grid, that is e-grid. Next page. So this is the loss diagram. So here we have to mention all kind of losses we are considering. Like there is a soiling loss factor that basically comes from that can be omitted to 1%, that can be decreased 1% with proper maintenance and module washing. And then it's come to the major part is PV loss due to temperature. So this PV loss due to temperature comes from different location, their ambient temperature, and as well as their mounting structures. So if we are installing the solar power plant in a tin shed roof, so there is very less space for air circulation. The heat is generating, the temperature is getting increased. So in case of flat roof, we are getting the PV loss due to temperature in Kolkata nearly 7 to 8%. And if we are installing it in a tin shed roof, it will be drastically changed up to 12 to 13%. And then there is LID, light induced degradation, which is mentioned in the module data sheet. Just because every module is getting decreased, and the module warranty is 25 years, but 25 years on rated output. So what is the warranty scheme? So after 25 years, it will be generating 80%, and this degradation will be linear. And then it comes to the mismatch losses and electrical shading losses. Then it comes to the system unavailability. Suppose you have installed a solar power plant, but there is a power cut, the grid failure. That time the solar power plant is not generating. So in this case, it's a thumb rule, based on thumb rule. If you are connected with a low voltage side, 415 volt connection through the grid, it's considered like 2.5%. And if you are in a 33 kV or above, it's very negligible. We consider it's 0.5. So this is a basically PVC's report. So come to my slides again. This is the plant layout and shadow analysis which we have seen from the software, and how we can, now we will discuss what kind of inverter we should choose based on this array layout. Suppose in this fast part where it is basically a totally red, where the daylight is almost 11.5 hours. So in that case, we will use only string inverters, normal string inverters, just because there is no shadow. But in case of the section which is in the north side, and where you are seeing some yellow color and bluish shadow, so that part there is a moving shadow. So now if we are connecting the solar modules in series, suppose 18 modules in series connection, and there is a moving shadow in one or two modules, the total strings will be affected. So one module, there is shadow in one module, that means the total 18 modules generation will be hampered. And eventually there will be a hotspot and the module will get damaged. So in that case, we may have to use some optimizer. So what optimizer do? Optimizer do a module level monitoring. Like suppose we are connecting two modules with single optimizer. So if there is any shadow in these two modules, it won't hamper the rest of the modules. So the generation will be higher side. So obviously this optimizer comes with a good cost, but in case of some places where you have to install a certain capacity, just because to fulfill the RPO obligations, or you have some green building guidelines that you have to put 200 kilowatts, but you don't have shadow free area. In that cases, we suggest that to use a micro inverters or micro optimizers. So optimizers and inverters. So Optimizers are DC to DC. So they don't invert the DC power to AC. So you have to use another inverter. And in case of micro inverter, which is another bit costly, that the total from a single module or double module, the total power will be inverted into AC and 230-volt AC. So you can use in household. And now in case of high-rise buildings, where the safety norms are very stringent, right? So maybe you are installing a solar power plant in 40th floor. So in that case, in DC solar, when we are connecting 18 modules in series, so there will be a high chance of any kind of arc, or in case of any fire, there is a huge chance of accident, just because there is almost 700 to 800-volt DC power is on the roof. So in that case, we can use a rapid shutdown mechanism via micro inverters or micro optimizers. So where with a single point, that plant VOC will come to 1 volt with a very 30 milliseconds time. It's called rapid shutdown. So in Australia, Canada, and US, most of the residential buildings are complied with this kind of norms. You have to provide rapid shutdown just to prevent the fire, and if there is any emergency shutdown, it can be fulfilled. So these are the PVC simulations which we have already seen in the softwares. So this is an example of a site layout, and so in site layout we should define the every string in different color coding, just because the in site execution time the technicians will work with this drawing, and most of the cases in solar power plant all the modules are kind of same and everything. Most people do the wrong connection with the string. So to prevent this, we always prefer the color coding in the modules. So every string with a single color code. And it is also very important in case of PVC report that is this layout can be incorporated in the PVC report too. So it's that kind of thing is it takes PVCs take almost 30 to 35 minutes to incorporate that. So that's why we didn't shown you in the live session. So in a layout, what we have to mention the layout of the module and how the module is connected, the strings, and what is the cable routing, and where will be the ACDB inverter and DCDB is connected. Where is your identified approximate earth pit locations, and all these things that should be in your layout system. And this is a simple SLD of a solar power plant. So these are in the left side. I think it's a very small to see properly. So in the extreme left, there is solar module. That's the symbol of solar modules. So that means this 18 number of solar modules is connected in a single string. And after that, it directly goes into inverter. But in small scale plant like 5 kilowatt, 10 kilowatt, 20 kilowatt, we use our ACDB or AJB, array junction box or AC distribution box. So this AJB array junction box provides us the protection. So in array junction box, we provide SPD, DC side SPD along with fuses and isolators. After that, there is inverter. So mostly we are using right now string inverters. Earlier the string inverters, I mean earlier means almost 5 or 7 years back, the highest string inverter size was 30-40 kilowatt. But right now the 100 kilowatt level string inverters are available. And using string inverters, apart from using central inverters of 300 kilowatt or 400 kilowatt, is advisable just because the reliability increases. Suppose one inverter gets hampered or gets any fault, it should be replaced. At that time, the total plant is not hampered. The total plant generation is not getting hampered. Only that module, that inverter part. So you can replace it phase by in a phase manner. So after that, there is a ACDB. So what is the reason of our ECDB? The main thing that surge protection as well as some metering, so that we can see how much AC power is generated from the solar power plant. After that, we are connecting it to grid via energy meter like net meter or gross meter. And before that, most of the cases where your inverter and ACDB is, the grid interfacing panel is somewhere else. So we provide a grid interfacing panel which also have a MFM meter so that we can see the energy and all this. And there is a isolation, like in a smaller scale like it's MCCB, in a higher scale it will be a breaker. So now this inverter's data, so how we can check, remotely monitor how much the plant is generating. So for that purpose, we use a data logger, which can be incorporated in inverter in a small manner, and it can be a extended part too. And you can use a weather station, just because if you have to calculate that what is the actual power coming from the solar and what is your power is generating and what it should. So for that part, in larger number of, like if there is a megawatt scale power plant or in any specific requirement of government department, we have to install a weather station. So what is weather station? There will be a pyranometer. That pyranometer will sense what is the current irradiance at that location, what is the wind speed, that will be detected from anemometer. And there will be a temperature, two type of temperature sensor. One is ambient temperature sensor and the another one is module temperature sensor. That's because if there is a huge high temperature, the generation will be decreased. So that is not in hand of any solar installer or any end user. And if there is really problem in irradiance, then you can't do it. So this is a very general methodology which is getting followed in every solar power plant, in the larger scale solar power plant, to measure the actual performance of the solar power plant. Now we are coming to common installation errors. So first one is improper orientation of PV module with structure. So we have to check the azimuth. Is it properly in south direction? If not, what is the deflection? And we have to calculate for this deflection what is the net generation which will be getting decreased, and what will be the price, and for that what we can do it. And the next one is tilt angle of the structure. So if the tilt angle is different, like for any places, if the requirement is 23° and we are putting it in 35° or 5°, it will be get hampered. The generation will be decreased. But in case of tilt rooftop, obviously the tilt is with the roof itself. In that case, we have to calculate what is the loss of energy due to this tilt angle, and that should be incorporated in our financial modeling. Otherwise, that will show a different picture, very rosy picture. So after that, installing the solar power plant, after 1 year, we'll get the real picture that you think like this plant should have generated this much of amount and this is generating this much. So the next one is leakage of the RCC roof waterproofing. In many installations, very careless installations, people do holes and for anchor fastening. After that, there is no repair of the waterproof. So the roof is getting damaged. So that shouldn't be done. Improper cable routing. It's a huge setback for the solar industries, especially in the rooftop. So where we have to put the cable through the cable tray, where we should use conduit pipes, and in conduit pipe also, what should be the free space? How many cables should be? I mean, depending upon the current carrying capacity in the conduit level, we have to check the cable loss calculation. So if we are calculating the cable loss, considering the cable loss based on the open air routing, and we are putting in the conduit without proper spacing, there's a huge loss, and that will affect the net energy fed into grid. And the most irritating mistakes what we solar people sometimes do, mix of AC and DC earthing as well as lighting arresters. I have seen few plants where the lighting arresters is connected in the same earth pit where the inverter is getting connected. So we are inviting lightning and giving a path to damage our equipment. So in any solar plant, we have to ensure that the earthing should be separated. So AC earth pit, DC earth pit, and lightning arrestor earth pit with a at least 1.5 or 2 meter spacing in between. And the earthing should be done as per IS 3043. Just because it's a protection. So you have warranty in your solar modules, you have warranty in your solar inverters and every equipment, but on their manufacturer's warranty policy, there is some validation for warranty void. So in that case, the surge and lightning, in case of surge and lightning, nobody provides you warranty. So most of the cases, to save some thousand rupees, we neglect the actual protection, and in longer terms, we have to pay 100 times of that money. So now we understood that what kind of solar power plants can be installed. So what are the different types of solar power plants, how we should design a proper solar power plant, how we install a proper solar power plant. So now my question is, if there is no commercial viability, so for the sake of nature, do you install a solar power plant in your organization? I don't think so. So let's have a look in the financial snapshot. So it's a financial snapshot of a 100 kilowatt peak grid connected solar power plant. So we have calculated the investment for this as per the MNRE benchmark cost is 38 lakh rupees and estimated life cycle is 25 years. So here the LCOE, that means levelized cost of energy. It's as low as 1.73 rupees per unit if you take the 25 years of the cycle. We have considered the operation and maintenance cost. We have considered the degradation of solar modules. We have considered the slightly 1% every year the escalation of escalation of grid tariff. So after that, we have come to a point, the payback is 3.5 years, and eventually if the way the price is falling of solar modules, eventually it will get decreased day by day. So if we take IRR, so for any investment firm or for investment decision, it shouldn't be taken on the capex, what is the capital expenditure. We have to check the life cycle cost and internal rate of return in a longer run. So if we consider a 100 kilowatt peak solar power plant with 38 lakh rupees investment, the IRR for 25 years is more than 50%. And the ROI is 350% after 25 years. So this plant will generate 3.1 gigawatt hour energy throughout its life cycle. And the most important part, accelerated depreciation tax benefit. So what is accelerated depreciation and tax benefit? So if you are a profit making organization, you have to pay income tax. So if you are investing 100 rupees in a solar power plant, in the first year you can depreciate your asset by 40%. So you can show that 100 rupees solar power plant becomes a 60 rupees asset. So that 40 rupees which you get in the depreciation, based on the tax slab, you are getting tax benefits. So if you are in a 25% tax slab, which is a private limited company, so almost nearly within 4 years, 25% of the money is getting back via tax benefits. So these are the earlier days. In up to 2015, it was 80% accelerated depreciation. At the starting phase from 2007, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, that is the most encouraging part for any company. That time, every company was putting a captive solar power plant just to take the advantage of tax benefit. Right now, it's 40% accelerated depreciation. So currently there is no viability gap, right? So people are asking for solar subsidy and all this. So if you can consider the current bank deposits, if we consider the bank deposit interest and solar return, so we don't think there is any viability gap. So if there is no viability gap, then why need the subsidy? So that's the important part. We have to think like this is the high time. We have to go solar. So now, if you are convinced to put a solar power plant in your organization, and you have you have sent request for proposal to many companies like solar EPC companies, and they have quoted you plenty of proposals. The price is coming from 27 rupees to 60 rupees. So how to evaluate? How to evaluate a proposal? So first thing, you have to check the shadow analysis. In that proposal, do you have shadow analysis or their video or heat map? From that, you can analyze how well they have designed optimally for the maximum output. Next one is PVCs report. So in PVCs report, you have to check what is the orientation. If your organization's roof have any shading issues, you will know better, right? If there is any LMR rooms or any staircases shadows, you have to check that shading scene is incorporated in the PVCs report or not. If it's not incorporated in PVC's report, there will be 4 to 5% losses which will not show in the PVC's report. Then you should check the specific production. What is specific production? We have discussed earlier. Kilowatt hour per kilowatt peak per year. You can find plenty of website, Eminary website, Enrail website to have an idea. So what is the basic specific production should be in a particular location. Then you can check the performance ratio that will indicate how well your modules, inverter and all these are performing. And then the loss string configuration. So they have mentioned the strings as per the layout for the shadow analysis or not. And then the most important, loss diagram. So you have to check that every practical losses is incorporated or not. Most of the cases, solar EPCs try to please customers by promising a higher energy, higher specific production. But you should be aware what is going to happen after 1 year or after 5 years. Suppose in any rooftop solar power plant, suppose let's take a 1 megawatt solar power plant where the actual generation would be due to shadow or some heating issues or anything 1200 units, but a company is providing 1400 units. So that means a shortfall of 200 units. So when you are taking the decisions, obviously you will make a financial model, you will make a projected cash flow. In that cash flow, there will be a shortfall of 200 units per kilowatt peak per year. So that means in case of if you are paying to the discom 8 rupees, so 1600 rupees per kilowatt peak per year, that is your deficit from what you are projecting and what actually is going to happen. So 1600 per kilowatt means 16 lakh rupees for a megawatt. So suppose you are installing a 1 megawatt solar power plant which will cost you nearly 3.2, 3.4, 3.2 crore rupees, and you have prepared a projected cash flow. Projected cash flow where the shortfall is 16 lakh rupees per megawatt per year. So in 5 years, the projected shortfall is 80 lakh rupees, which is 25% of your total project cost. So you have to well aware what you are going to install, and you have to think rationally, not based on any emotions like it will be generating some this power this amount of energy and this will be the payback and this will be the outcome. So after that you have to calculate. Suppose someone is quoting 36, someone is quoting 38, and you are thinking that this guy is 38 is quoting higher. You have to check what kind of solar module technology he is using. If it's polycrystalline or it's monocrystalline. In monocrystalline, it's monopark or it's monopark half cut. So from normal polycrystalline to monoPAR half cut, the price difference is almost 4 rupees per watt peak. So now you have to check the solar PV inverter type too. So if it is only using string inverters or micro inverters or string inverters with optimizer, it will be totally depending upon your shadow analysis part. And then cable selection and loss calculation. Always ask for cable loss calculation from the installer with a detailed calculation. Now, what kind of earthing and LA and the specification or the standard by which, like IS 3043 or any IEC standard, just because it's a very plenty, I mean, it's a in terms of project cost, it's a very penny cost, but it will cost you in long run very hugely if you are not doing it properly. And the next thing is structure type. Depending upon your roof area, that structure types will be decided. So if you are going through hot dip galvanized iron, or if you have a tin shade roof, we can use aluminum structures. So based on this, the costing should be done. And always ask for a design from your installer. So what is your structural design and what will be the weight of the structures? Just because you can tally the current price from MS price, aluminum price, you will get an idea. So what can be the price? So I have to go a long run like solar pump and solar street lights. So, so if you allow us to take some quick questions, we can take one or two.
I would suggest, sir, we carry on with the session because we are running out of time and we can take all the questions in the end.
Sure, sure. Thank you. So now the solar water pumping system. So at the previous slides we discussed there is a plenty of renewable energy encouraging schemes. So in that schemes there is first one is the most important one is PM Kusum, and there is Jal Shakti Abhijan, Har Ghar Jal. There is plenty of schemes. So why we need solar water pumping system? Just because to for agriculture and our household needs. So now let's have a look what kind of solar pumping systems are available. So based on the motor type, so it's DC and AC. Currently we have both of the mechanism, DC solar pumps and AC solar pumps. And based on the water requirement and the water location, water source, we can divide solar pumps in majorly three categories. One is submersible. So from below the ground level water, if we want to extract water from a lower ground level, we have to use submersible solar pump. If there is sufficient water source in pond or any lake in the surface water, we can use surface. But in case of surface pumps, the suction head is only 6 to 7 meters. So if you have any well which is the depth is more than 6 to 7 meters, we have to use open well horizontal submersible pumps. So now we will go to the basic block diagram of a solar power plant, solar pumping system. So here we have considered a submersible pump which is lowered into the underground level, and we are using solar panel, and then the solar panel is connected in a string to generate desired amount of voltage and current, and it is the motor is running optimally via a pump controller. So a solar pump controller is nothing. There is a VFD, variable frequency drive. By changing the frequency, we can control the speed of the motor based on available solar power. That VFD, that variable frequency drive, are having a MPPT inside, which is maximum power point tracker. So it tracks the maximum power from solar panel and drives the motor with that power most optimistic way. So now comes to the applications and advantages. So what are the advantages of solar water pump? So water supply without any conventional power supply. So in case of agricultural use in irrigation, there is in a field, there is no connection for a normal grid connection. So where we can use very effectively the solar pumps and one-time investment, long-time solution. And in rural India, plenty of farmers are still using diesel pump sets. So there's a huge savings compared to diesel pump sets. though the investment is a bit higher, but in the longer run, the payback is very, very high. Like in 8 months, there will be payback if someone is using a diesel pump sets and a solar water pumping system. And obviously, green energy, zero pollution. So, what are the application of solar water pumping? So, the main is obviously the irrigation, which is in agricultural part. Though in drinking water, just because in Jal Shakti Abhiyan, every household of India will be connected with a tap water. In that scheme, there is a huge push for solar water pumping system and construction activities and household uses. So now we want to throw some lights in solar street lights. So in municipal area, the total consumption's 1.5% is street lighting load. And we have seen in many cities, the street lights are getting turned on by 11 o'clock morning too. So there is no sensors and optimize of usage. And in rural areas, the total energy consumption 20% from solar street lights. So now what are the different types of street lights currently available in the market? So first one is fully integrated solar street light. That means in the picture it is clearly visible that the back side is the solar module and the lower part is the LED lights, and in between there will be the battery and controller part. So the controller can be used like PWM and MPPT, but we advise always use the MPPT charge controller just because for a most efficient charging for the battery. And in this fully integrated solar street light, there is a problem. So we can't change the orientation of module. If we change the orientation of module, the light's orientation will be changed. So in case of street pathway lighting, the widely used option is semi-integrated solar street light, where the module is separate and the light will have a compartment where the lithium ferrophosphate battery will be incorporated with a charge controller. And the other one is the conventional solar street lights. So where the module, lights and battery all are separated in the individual installations. And the new era is called solar mini-mast light. So in rural areas like block level and panchayat, they get fund for electrification. So when they get a fund, they install conventional high mast lighting. So they get fund from any grant and they are installing. But who will pay the huge electricity bill month on month basis? So in that part, the solar mini mast is a game changer. So you can install one with your grant or any fund one time and rest for the 5 years. For the 5 years, it's warranted and the life cycle is nearly 7 to 8 years. So now I want to throw some light in last mile solutions. Like for any medicinal purpose like vaccines, like Covaxin for COVID vaccine. So if we have to spread the vaccine in the nooks and corners of our country, so we need some infrastructure too, right? So in plenty of rural villages, there is no electricity. Then how it will be? I mean, the only option is diesel generator to run a freezer or any cold room. So we can utilize on those places solar powered freezer, solar powered cold room to store vegetables and fruits, as well as in rural India, plenty of villagers are still using kerosene based lamp.
তুমি শুনতে পাচ্ছ? আচ্ছা, আমার নাম ডাকলে একটু বলো।
Excuse me, please put yourself in the mute mode.
So this home light system can be installed, can be in every rural houses. A small size of solar module, charge controller, bulb and fan. It can be huge pollution can be decreased hugely, like using instead of kerosene based lamp to solar home light system. Thank you. So now we are open for any kind of questions.
I guess we had some questions in the chat box and Mr. Chayan has answered them. I have some questions. I've received some questions in WhatsApp. If we are not having any questions in the chat box, then I will start asking the questions that I have received. I request everybody kindly be on the mute mode, please. Okay, so sir, we have some questions via WhatsApp. So I'll just ask you: Is
Sure.
boot system offered for a small SME? I'm from a small company. We are not a big group, and we want to do solar system via boot model. Is it applicable for my company?
Yeah, so the boot model in terms like build, own, operate, and transfer. So how it works is some investor will come, they will put the solar power plant in your premises, and they will take money throughout the generation. Like they will bill per unit. The way Discoms is getting Discoms is billing us, the same way the investor will bill the factory owner. So in case of small, like in case of investing like in boot, so what investors look, first one is scale of the solar power plant. Usually it should be higher than, earlier days it was higher than 500 kilowatt, but right now more than 100 kilowatt the investors are getting interested to invest in. And the most important thing, the credit rating of that company. So they will do a credit, if they have any CRISIL or ICRA or any Fitch credit report more than this triple B plus, which is considerably okay. And if it's A, there is no issues. So it's totally based on their finance part and the scale of the scale of the plant.
Okay. So the next question that I have received is, what is the economic way of building a solar structure where the land cost is very high?
Okay, nice. So in case of solar pumping installations, the land cost is not that high, but land is very much productive. So in that case, what we do is we took a pole mounted structure. Like there will be a single pole, and after that there will be modules like 6 modules or 7 or 8 modules on that pole. And in those cases, if you are talking about any rooftops, just because in plenty of high rises they use the roof like cafeteria and all, so we can do a superstructure, so the elevated structure. So we did it. There is plenty of house owners, basically they want to utilize their roof space, so where we provide 8 feet height structures so that they can use the roof.
Okay. So next question that I have with me is that, is there any collateral obligation towards the bank if I'm making a solar power project, or is there any subsidy offered?
So in case of subsidy, there is no subsidy for any commercial or industrial institutes. So in many states there is a subsidy for in residential customers, but in West Bengal there is no current clear policy regarding subsidy. And for any profit making institutions, they are getting the tax benefits, which is in terms in 3 to 4 years, 25% of the cost they are getting through the tax benefits. So there is no subsidy. And in case of bank loan, it's totally based on like in the finance and the rapport with the bank for this organization and organization's past track. So one of our client is getting without collateral loans based on project, 30% equity, 70% debt, and few of our clients struggles to give 70% collateral and getting 100% money. So it's totally based on the credibility of the customer.
Okay. So next question that I have is, what is the rule of thumb for capacity and cost? Is there any rule of thumb?
Yeah, very interesting questions. So MNRE has set a benchmark cost, right? So that is the thumb rule for cost for all of us. But the problem is they didn't mention any specification on that benchmark cost. So if you're taking the benchmark cost and someone is quoting you with polycrystalline and someone is quoting with monopark half cut cells, the benchmark cost is same. So eventually, what the market adopted, the benchmark cost is based on polycrystalline solar modules and string inverters. And if you are adding monopark, the cost is 1 and 1.5 rupees extra. And if you are using monopark half cut, then another 1 and 1.5 rupees extra. So you can take 3 rupees extra from polycrystalline to monopark half cut. And if you are using optimizers, then you have to check optimizers or microinverters. You have to check how many numbers of optimizers and microinverters are getting installed. Based on this comes with a cost nearly 4,800 to 6,000 rupees depending upon different make. So you have to take the benchmark of MNRE and you have to incorporate the module and inverter type as well as the structure type. If you are using tilt roof, the structure cost is minimal. So it's always obvious to ask your installer what is the weight of the structures and what is the type of the structure.
Okay, so the last question that I have with me is that, sir, can you throw some light on RPO obligation?
RPO obligation, it's renewable power purchase obligation. So it is basically incorporated just because every industry or discom, those who are generating powers or buying powers, they have to take 5% from renewable energy sources. So in fast phase, it was implemented on discom level. So that is the main reason why NTPC, the power generators, so someone is generating 100 units from thermal power plant, they have to take 5 units from renewable energy sources. So that's the main encouraging point for all discoms, that for the last decades, all discoms have installed plenty numbers of solar power plants in Rajasthan, in Gujarat, in Maharashtra. So every industry have to install a solar power plant or buy solar power 5% of its total energy needs.
Okay, we are done with the questions and I see the chat box is clean. So we do not have any further questions. Sir, I would request you, can you share your email address with our participants so that if there are any follow-up questions or doubts of the participants, they can email it directly to you. Also, we have many professionals in the audience, and if you have any other requirement in terms of your projects or you need to contact our speaker, his details are there on the screen. And you can write to him or you can contact his company through his website and reach out to him
Sure.
any of your further needs.
Sure. So we want to thank you for giving us the opportunity to connect with all young bright minds and industry professionals. So I have tried to explain all technical details in as much as depth as possible in this brief time limit. So this HVAC industry is filled with very knowledgeable professionals. I hope I have been able to widen that horizon. I would request all thinkers and believers to kindly try your level best to add any renewable technology to all your running and upcoming projects. Let this industry not be a niche one. Let it not be segmented. Let us all vouch to make a cleaner, greener, and energy rich planet. Thank you.
Wow, that was a wonderful message from our speaker. And we should really think hard and believe and trust ourselves to invest more in renewable technologies. And I think this session has really widened our horizon and helped us to think beyond what we normally think in terms of our project and its cost. Sir, thank you so much for that brilliant presentation. I would request you, if you can mail me your slides, we can share it with our participants for their follow-up also. And thank you everybody for participating and staying till the end of this program. You have always encouraged ISHRE to bring more and more interesting topics and great speakers and enlighten the bright and young minds present over here. And again, all of you, thank you for your time. Thank you for your patience. It has been a wonderful session. And we at ISHRE promise to bring you many, many more sessions like this. Please tune in to us and we shall be back with our next training program very soon. Thank you, everyone. With everyone's permission and permission of President Sir, I would like to end this meeting now. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you.